Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Diplomatic Enclave. I am your host Khalid. But today we are with the ambassador of a country that has many things that are individual to it. For example, the word of that country is a Latinization of a German word Österreich, which was first recorded in the 10th century. It has one of the oldest flags in the world. The sewing machine was invented by a person of that nationality. His name was Joseph. Also, one of the cities has the oldest zoos in the whole world. That was, of course, founded in 1752. Schönbrunn, that is the place where the zoo is found. Also, the first postcards that were used were in Austria. One of the Austrian persons, of course now you know we're going to talk about Austria, his name was Leopold Weiss, and he moved to Pakistan, converted to Islam and called himself Muhammad Asad. He made a significant contribution to the drafting of the Constitution of Pakistan and also was the first permanent representative of Pakistan to the United Nations. We've got that and so many other peculiarities about this beautiful country that is Austria, and I have the privilege of having the ambassador of that country, Dr.Brigitta Balaha, with me. Dr. Balaha, thank you very much to have joined us.
You're welcome.
So Dr.Brigitta Balaha, doctor, are you a doctor of MBBS? Are you a PhD doctor? Because I know that you've studied law.
Well, you know, this is a title that you get when you do a certain university studies. Austria had a different system, not the American type of bachelor, master and PhD. So we had doctorate studies, and this is the degree that I got when I studied law in Vienna back in 1970s.
All right. For doctor, because you are just an MBBS. You have just done your medical studies. I have done my doctorate, so I can be called a doctor, not you. And there used to be this whole discussion at home. Has it been the case with you as well?
No, it's exactly
It's
the opposite.
exactly the opposite.
Yeah. my brother, because my father, he also studied law. My mother studied art history and literature. But everybody has a doctor degree.
When did you find out that foreign affairs was the path that you wanted to take?
Well, I think I was still in school or at university. My father was the director general of the Austrian National Museums, and we traveled a lot with my parents, and we visited many of the Austrian cultural institutes abroad that later became part of the Foreign Service. And I found that work very interesting, so I had this in mind.
All right. So many different countries you've been to, so many different experiences around the world, and since 2014 you're in Pakistan. What memories do you have with you of the different countries that you've been to?
Only the best. I started in Washington, then I moved to Bangkok, Thailand. Usually we do 2 postings abroad and then we go back home for a while. So after that I had 2 children, and then we moved to Rome and to Tokyo. Both places I was working as a cultural counselor, and then back to Vienna, and the last 2 postings were in Hong Kong and in New York as consul general. And people have asked me many times, what was your favorite posting? And when I say, you know, I liked all of them, then it's always the diplomatic answer. But I must say it's true, because every country had a certain flavor and some special aspects that I have enjoyed to explore, which is also true for Pakistan, where I have spent the last 4 years.
Well, speaking of Pakistan, you're here since 2014. How has it been for you? Which are the places that you've been to, the people you've met, and how has your experience been of Pakistan?
Well, I think overall it was a very good experience, a very interesting country, a very hospitable country. People are really very welcoming, which was a great pleasure and a great benefit for us. I had the opportunity to travel quite a bit. I did some for business-related trips, mostly Lahore, Karachi, but I've also done some privately with my family. They came to visit and we explored the northern areas, did some hiking to some base camps, Nanga Parbat, Rakaposhi. I also had the opportunity to visit Multan, Bahawalpur, Cholistan desert.
You've been all over
Around,
Pakistan, in fact.
well, I think so. The only place I haven't been to is the coast of north of Karachi, and I plan to do this before I leave.
All right, that's brilliant, and I hope you get to see that. And
Yeah.
I'm really happy that your family also got to see the beautiful country and the beautiful places that are present in Pakistan. Now, speaking of your country, that's a
Yeah.
beautiful country as well. It's a Central European country. It's called Austria, settled in pre-Roman times by various Celtic tribes. Now, then it was later claimed by the Roman Empire and made a province. Are there still traces of those ancient times present in Austria?
Yes, you know, the Roman Empire extended, covered actually a large part of Austria, all the areas south of the Danube, and we still have, you know, larger cities that are former administrative centers like Salzburg, Wels, an area in Carinthia in the south. Vienna itself was a camp of a legion, and not far from Vienna is Carnuntum, where there was another city. We can still see archaeological excavations. You can visit them. Actually, right in the very city center, few steps from St. Stephen's Cathedral, you can visit some Roman excavations. And in Carnuntum, which is, you know, not far to drive from Vienna, they have even reconstructed a bath and a house, so to show to people and especially to, you know, students how it looked like, how life looked like during the Roman period.
I think it's very important for people to understand where they come from, their heritage as well, their history, and the preservation of that history is very important for our generation and for the generations to come. Now, Austria is a largely mountainous country. Now, 62% are the Alps, beautiful Alps. I mean, we compare our mountains also to the Alps that are present in Austria. They are, of course, divided into 5 areas, the biggest being the Eastern Alps. Could you tell us a little bit about those and how important those are also for tourism?
Yes. So the Alps, basically, they stretch along a distance of about 1,200 kilometers. Or do you want to know in miles? I don't know the miles.
It's all right.
And 8 countries, so France, Italy, Switzerland, Monaco, Liechtenstein, Austria, Germany, and Slovenia. The highest mountain is the Mont Blanc at the border of Italy and France. And there are about 100 peaks that are about 4,000 meter high. So you have to imagine about half the size of your mountains, but a few more peaks. And of course, snow covered, we have glaciers, and it is an important, as you said, also factor for tourism, for winter sports, but also for summer hiking, trekking, and it's a wonderful nature, still pristine in parts, and I think we all try to preserve it as much as we can.
Brilliant. Now, Pakistan is a democracy. Austria became a federal representative democratic republic through a constitution that was passed in 1920. The political system of the Second Republic of Austria, of course, with its 9 states, is based on this constitution of 1920. It was further amended in 1929 and then reenacted in 1945. What type of government do you have in Austria based on this constitution? Is there any resemblance to the government that is in Pakistan?
Well, we have, as you said, it's a parliamentary republic founded on democratic principles. We have a federal president. He is elected by popular vote, so directly by
So it's
the
different
people.
than Pakistan. In
This
Pakistan
is very
it's
different, yeah. and his term is 6 years. We have a parliament that has two chambers, the National Council, that's the lower house, and the Federal Council, the upper house.
Okay,
These are
like
the
the National Assembly and Senate here.
legislative bodies. And the government is headed by what we call a federal chancellor. The constitution you mentioned is one of the bases of our republic. There are others. The state treaty from 1955 is, if you remember, Austria had, after the Second World War, was for 10 years still occupied by the Allied powers, and in 1955 regained its sovereignty. So this state treaty is very important. The declaration of our neutrality, which was part of this package, and also our accession agreement with the European Union from 1995.
All right. So all of that has paved the way for what Austria is now, as far as government and as far as its governance is concerned. Now, as a federal republic, Austria is composed of 9 states. They are further divided into districts and then into statutory cities. Now, districts are subdivided into municipalities. So there's a lot of division and subdivision. How is all of this governed?
Yeah. I'm amazed that you are so interested in all these micro.
I like it. I like to understand how a
microstructures. So yeah, we have 9 provinces, and then we have more than 2,300 of these municipalities, Gemeinde as we call them, and they have their own sphere of competence. So they are in charge of their own public administration. They are also independent economic entities. They are subject to regular supervision, and they can also act in a sphere of competence which is delegated by the state or by the provinces. There are some mandatory bodies that these entities have, which is the municipal council, the municipal board, and the mayor.
All right.
So they are, deciding on their own budget, and they are taking measures for their community.
All right. So, I mean, you have kind of divided all the powers in such a way that it reaches the common person, and any common man in Austria, or woman for that matter, whatever his or her problem might be, can get direct access to the different, I mean, that is how it is divided into different
and there's a lot
levels.
of, direct participation. So the mayors are mostly elected by the people of this village or this city.
All right. All right. Now, speaking of the people of Austria, you've got different ethnicities, you've got different nationalities. How much of your nationalities and ethnicities have been from Austria, and how many are from different other countries that have come to Austria in the last years, decades, or centuries?
Well, as you know, Austria was, a large empire, and it covered many different countries, ethnicities, religions, languages. After the end of the war, then this whole empire disintegrated. Austria was what the French foreign minister during the peace negotiations called "that's what's left." So we are left with a small country of 8 million in the center of Europe. And of course we still have people from the former empire living with us: Croats, Serbs, Hungarians, Slovenes. So they are part of our country. And they also, some of the languages of these people are still recognized as not in the whole country, but in the areas where these ethnicities live, like Croatian and Hungarian in the eastern province of Burgenland, and Slovenian in the southern province of Carinthia.
All right. So these ethnicities, these people speak their language, but German is the main language that
German
is
is the
spoken
main
in
language,
Austria. Do you integrate other languages that are spoken by these minorities as well?
Well, I think few people who are not, I mean, maybe in the areas where they live, people do learn the languages, but otherwise, people in schools rather learn, you know, international foreign languages like English, French, and others.
All right, but German still remains the
German
main
is-
language
German
that
is
is
the-
also spoken and
official
written
language.
in
Yeah.
your foreign
Yeah.
office and other different
Absolutely.
ministries.
Yeah.
All
There
right.
are some particularities in our version of German. You can maybe compare to American and British English. So we have some different vocabulary and a different pronunciation, sometimes a bit slightly differences in grammar, but basically we speak the same language and we understand each other.
All right. Well, great. Economy, very important for any country. For Pakistan as well, we are trying to build it, make it a better economy. Austria is a highly industrialized economy, and it is a well-developed social market economy as well. Could you explain a little bit about it and how that has helped shape what is Austria now?
Yes, I think this social market economy, basically, you know, in the 19th century you had a lot of conflict between labor and employers. So this social market economy is a way to have an achievement-oriented economy based on private ownership with a strong and fair competition, and balanced with combined with a system of social balance and fair partnership. So there is this negotiations between the employers and the employees to come to solution, to negotiate the wages and to avoid conflicts. And I think this has contributed to make the country a productive,
All right.
a productive economy. We do have mostly, we have some large companies in certain areas, but the majority of our system is based on small and middle income
All right. All right.
companies.
All right.
Yeah.
So that is the most important part of your
Yeah,
economy
that is
as
the
per now
backbone of the
in
economy.
Austria,
Yeah.
your backbone. All right. Speaking of science, I mean, when it comes to innovation, Austria is not behind. 19 Austrians have been awarded a Nobel Peace Prize, 7 in physiology, in medicine, 4 in chemistry, 3 in physics. How important is scientific innovation to you? Because as we see the number of people who've gotten these awards, and also of the scientists, whether it be Doppler as well, Christian Doppler, we still studied that. I studied it when I was doing my FSc. Of course, 19th and the 20th century, Meitner and Pauli are two scientists that are very important for nuclear research and quantum energy. Present day quantum scientist Anton Zeilinger is one who's very important. How do you preserve this scientific innovation, this scientific knowledge, and how many institutions are there present currently in Austria that promote that?
Research is carried out in university, in research centers, also in small and medium-sized enterprises. So the industry is also making an important contribution, and we do spend about 3.2% of our GDP on R&D,
All right.
which gives us the second place in the European Union after Sweden. So science
It's still very, very
is-
important
is
to a country like
important.
Austria. Despite the fact it's a small country, science and scientific innovation are two things that are still very important
Considered,
to
yeah.
this country. Now, science, of course, is one thing, but culture is another that is very important. You preserve it, you take your traditions forward from one generation to another. How important is culture to Austria? How much do you value it?
Well, I think culture is a very important part of Austria's identity, I would say. There is, the physical heritage that we have, and there is a very lively climate of creativity in many areas. So music is the best known, but there's literature, there's art, there's architecture, there is performing arts. Austrians are, they are very active visitors of operas and concerts, and they visit the museums. So I think there's a general interest of the public. There is a great also support from government, from the federal government, from the provinces, even from the small municipalities that we talked before. They all have their own whatever orchestras or small dance companies, and many of them have some historic buildings that they preserve and that they use also for functions. Tourism is contributing 10% to the gross national, to the GDP. So all this is contributing and is also attracting foreigners to come and visit.
All right. I think it's very important for foreigners, even for people like us, to come and visit a place like Austria. Which places would you suggest if I was to go to Austria? What should I go and see? Where should I visit?
Well, where do we start? So I think probably you would come to Vienna, the capital, and you have plenty to see there, palaces and castles, and you have many museums. But there's also contemporary architecture, which is interesting. You can see Salzburg is the other very well known and attractive city. There is Graz in the south, the capital of Styria, which is a very large historic center with important buildings, a very distinct own culture, also in terms of traditions, cuisine. Innsbruck in the mountains, more towards the west. You have, depends what you're interested in. You can, travel up and down, and you can see mountains and lakes and rivers and plains. And
how much if I wanted to go, how much time should I take out from my schedule? A month, 2 weeks?
Anytime, unlimited.
All right, so many places.
No, there is, and it's easy to travel because, you have good public transportation, so you can easily hop on a train and then go places, and you find buses that go to the very remote areas as well. But you can, of course, also drive your own car, and the distances are short, in like 600-700 kilometers you have done the whole length of the country. So it's very easy, and you find places to stay, and good restaurants, all categories. So it's very easy, and people are friendly.
All right, okay, just like in Pakistan.
Yeah.
Speaking of cuisine, you talked about that.
Yeah.
You've been here 4 years. What are the similarities and the differences between the Austrian cuisine and the Pakistani cuisine? I know there's a lot of herbs, a lot of spice here, we eat a lot of meat. What kind of food is eaten in Austria?
Well, Austrian has also a great variety. What I talked about before, that we had this great empire, and all the influences from these different countries, from the eastern part, from the southern, from the Balkans, from Italy. So there's a great variety in our cuisine as well. Traditionally, I think there are also a lot of meat dishes, but we eat everything. We have fish, and the only thing that Austria now doesn't have is the sea, so we don't have seafood.
All right.
But of course it can be imported. We are also very strong on desserts, on sweet cakes, and but also we have a whole range of warm desserts that would really replace a complete meal, actually.
All right.
And it was a tradition, in the Catholic Church. The Friday is still considered, but more so in the past, a meat-free day. So you were only allowed to eat fish. So very often it was either fish, or the other alternative was to have a sweet dish.
All right.
But it's not meat.
All right. That's interesting. But no spices.
Well, yes, we have spices. We have maybe more herbs than
All right.
spices. It's not so hot and spicy, but flavored.
All right. Sports, you talked about skiing. You said a lot of people hike as well in the summers because of the Alps as well. What sports are popular in your country? I mean, I know all the skiing and the winter sports are very popular, but are there other sports that are traditional in nature in Austria?
I think the second most popular sport is football.
All right.
That's played all around the country. And then sports that people do is, as we said, hiking, swimming, cycling, tennis, but water sports in general, boating and
so it's quite
surfing.
varied in nature.
Yeah, it's accessible. There are good, facilities. Sport is part of education in school, so children do grow up. There's also a lot of team sports, all kind of ball games that our children grow up with. So yeah, very much. So, and of course people are concerned about their health and their fitness. So there is, aerobics and yoga and all the rest of it.
You yourself are very fit as far as I can see. Speaking of the different influences, of course, we see that growing up in schools and colleges, the students in Austria are given an introduction to poetry, to literature, to music, and Austria is so rich in it. In literature, you've got the Nobel Prize winner Alfred Jelinek. You've got
Elfriede Jelinek.
Yes, exactly. I'm sorry, my pronunciation is not as good as far as my Austrian is concerned. And Daniel Kalman. Of course, in music, when it comes to opera, how can we not talk about Joseph and Michael Haydn? Of course, Liszt, Schubert, Anton Bruckner, so many big names as far as music is concerned. Do students in this day and age still are attracted by the traditional cultural particularities of Austria, such as opera, such as music, such as literature, such as poetry?
Well, I think, of course, it's taught in schools, yes. Young people may now have more interest in still music, but maybe different types of music, not so much the classical music. But there is still, the tradition, both for, classic music. We have all these music schools. They are spread around the country. In all small cities you have a music school, so people can learn instruments. Folk music is very much alive also in the countryside, brass bands and the like.
All right.
And many musicians actually come through this way into then becoming professional musicians. So there are many orchestras. So I think the scene is alive, maybe not to the same extent as it used to be. Theater, as I mentioned before, very much so. We have lots of festivals also during the summertime, and really most of the time they are sold out. Salzburg is the most prominent one. Opera is very much and
people go from other countries
interest
to Vienna to watch the opera.
Yeah. So, and I think also they make an effort to bring it also to a larger audience, because opera not everybody can afford. Not everybody is in Vienna or in Salzburg or in Graz, where the opera houses are. So they do bring it on public television.
So that people can watch those
outside.
Afford to go inside, can
public
watch it.
viewings, yeah.
All right.
So I think, yeah, there's an effort to keep all this alive.
All right, when you call of efforts, the efforts of any country are not only internal to bring people together, to make them interested, and to help them reach their goals, but it also to build relationship with other countries. Now, for that, the foreign policy of any country is very important. Your foreign policy is also very important. You are an important member of the OECD, the European Union, the United Nations. How would you consider your role to be in these organizations?
You know, we are a small country in the center of Europe. Our interest is to maintain good relations with all countries in the world, and to represent our interest in all the regional and international organizations that we are a member of. As mentioned before, since 1995 we are part of the European Union and thus part of their common foreign and security policy. We do take actively part. At the moment, this second half of the year 2018, Austria has the presidency of the Council of Europe, which has been taken very serious. A lot of preparation went into this role. So we like to describe our foreign policy like concentric circles. So very important for us are our neighboring countries. And then the relationship with Southern Europe, where Austria supports that they have a European perspective to become member of the European Union. Then we have the neighboring states of the enlarged European Union. We have the Mediterranean region and the Middle East. We do advocate a strong role of multilateralism, therefore the United Nations. And as you know, or you have already alluded to, Vienna is also the seat of a number of international organizations. It's one of the headquarters of the United Nations. So we do consider ourselves as a place for international dialogue, a platform, a bridge builder, also given our status of neutrality. These are the cornerstones of our foreign policy.
All right. Now let's come to Pakistan. You're here in Pakistan. You spent 4 good years here. How would you categorize the bilateral relationship that both Austria and Pakistan enjoy since the diplomatic relations were established between these two countries?
Yeah, we established relations in 1956, so shortly after, we gained our sovereignty back. And I would characterize them, as friendly but not very intense. We have a small embassy here, and we are trying our best to enhance the bilateral relations. But I must admit that we are also faced with the fact that Pakistan is a country of the risk of illegal migration. We have had this problem especially 2 years ago. We are also responsible for Afghanistan. Afghanistan is usually the number 1 or 2 countries of asylum seekers to Austria to take into consideration. We have to work with, a very strict visa policy of the Schengen countries, which sometimes does not allow for a very free flow of people back and forth. Pakistan, we have had very good relations with the embassy in Vienna, and all the people that we have invited have gotten their visa. But we also know that recently, there are problems with international NGOs. So there is unfortunately not this very free climate that I would wish for, so that you can, invite artists and scientists and send students. So I think it's very important to have people-to-people contacts. I think it really changes people's image, people's idea. You know, we have all the people that we have invited. Actually, they were quite ready to come and curious and interested. And they all left with a different image of Pakistan, obviously, which then they will, you know, also tell other people. And the same is true. Austria has a very good image in Pakistan. Many people want to visit. Everybody's very excited when they come back. But, you know, we also have a little bit of a cliché image maybe. And it can be completed by, you know, having personal contacts and experience.
I think personal contact and experience changes your perception of any country, whether it be Pakistan or whether it be Australia. As you said, the cliched, that's a very good word, the cliched thought that you have about a certain country, perception about a certain country changes when you come and visit it and meet the people and go and visit the places.
I mean, our advantage is that our cliche and our image is a positive one. The problem of Pakistan is that your image is not a positive one.
Exactly, but when people come here, that changes.
That changes, yes.
Well, in the field of academics, you are cooperating with Pakistan, and there are some bilateral agreements with Pakistan and Austria, and some Pakistani students have pursued their doctoral degrees in Austria as well. You've talked about the people-to-people contacts. The students that go there to pursue their studies, do they come back enriched? Have you had contact with them once they finished their doctorate, some of them, or are you in touch with those students? And how have they enriched their experience by pursuing their studies in Austria?
Well, this is a long story.
All right.
Most of the students that are going to Austria are on or especially the ones that are officially supported also with scholarships,
All right.
are in the postgraduate program. So they do spend quite a long time in Austria. To do a PhD, it takes like 3 or 4 years. Many are in the natural sciences. They come back, most of them teach at universities. Ever since I came here, I have been working on putting an alumni association together, because I find this is very important. And we had a number of meetings and tried to formalize this, you know, as a, you know, registered association here in this country. I hope I will leave this place and have it set up. So this is, I think, important, that we also then, you know, keep in touch, and the people keep updated. They can go for, you know, follow-up training or research, and so we can also create more permanent contacts.
Exactly, and
between individuals and institutions.
That's important, I think, people to people and institution to institution contact. Now, trade cooperation is not much, but it's there. We've got OMV, that is a huge company that is in Pakistan.
I have to crack the bad news that OMV has divested and has moved.
Oh, it has moved.
So they have given up their upstream activities in Pakistan, and they are now concentrating more on the downstream,
All right.
on products, refineries. We have one company who is becoming more active even, although they have been in this country for decades. This is Andritz, and they are in the hydropower sector. So they are involved and also bidding now for new projects. You know, you have a lot of plans for building dams, and you know, they could use this equipment. There's also one area where there were negotiations with the Punjab government for small hydropower plants on the irrigation channels.
All right.
And there is a cooperation already ongoing with KP government for these small clusters of small hydropower.
All right. All right. So there is a certain presence of Austrian companies. They're not as significant as it should be,
Yeah.
but let's hope for the best. Let's see whether in the coming years more and more companies might come.
Yeah,
if-
the trend is showing upward. I mean, we have in the first half, we had a over 20% increase of Austrian export, over 10% increase of Pakistani exports, imports to Austria. So, and it's also diversifying. You know, it's moving away from only, you know, textile into other areas. So we hope that this will continue and will intensify.
All right. Speaking of cooperation and of bringing people together, culture is of course one thing that bridges people and societies together. You've done a lot to bring musicians, to bring people from Austria here in Pakistan. You've held concerts. I've been to some of them in your tenure here. How important is it to you to bridge cultures between countries for people to get to know each other?
Well, for me personally, it's very important. Some people consider this as my hobby, but I think it is really, culture is the way of bringing people together, of better understanding each other. So we have tried not only to bring Austrian artists, but to also always start a dialogue with local artists. With music, it's very easy because it's a universal language. You put a few musicians together, they immediately have something to say and to do to each other. But we recently had two artists here. One was teaching a course on paper cutting at NCA,
All right.
and another one at Comsatz University. And the second one was doing studio drawings in artist studios. And also, again, immediately, you know, they have a contact, they understand each other, they have this fine sensorium for, you know, what really the other country is about. And it's never a conflict, it's always, you know, something.
There's
and
some kind of
an
harmony that
interest
develops
in
between
the
them.
diversity and in the, you know, learning from each other, seeing something different. So I think that's just very, very positive.
All right. Learning from each other's experiences and from each other is very important. I think it's enriching for any two people, any two cultures, any two societies. What are the other areas of cooperation that you feel Pakistan and Austria could work together in developing?
You know, I think given the very small embassy outfit that we have, we should not be too ambitious and branch out into many different areas. We have started now with this education, science, culture. I think there is a lot of room for, you know, doing more. Also in the trade area, so we should maybe not aim at now starting to open many new areas. Development cooperation in Austria is very much focused on a few countries. Pakistan is not one of these countries. We do have an initiative in the Foreign Ministry, which is a very private one. The target of the international community is to give 0.7% of the GDP to development cooperation, which very few countries ever reach. Austria has never, but we have a club in the ministry where we all pay 0.7% of our salaries in a fund, and we finance a few small projects.
All right, that's interesting.
And this is done through, you know, colleagues who live in countries, and there is no administration cost, so that money goes directly to a project. The colleagues either do it personally or they have a contact to supervise the project and so on. So we have been able to do 4 projects altogether here in
All right.
Pakistan. And I'm very happy that, you know, it's a very small contribution, but something that we were able to do.
All right. And how do you see finally the future of Pakistan-Austria relationship in the coming years, in the coming decades, now that stability is slowly and steadily coming in our country and we're working to improve our economy and other areas of development as well? How do you foresee this relationship developing between Austria and Pakistan?
Well, it can only become, more intense, as I said before, friendly. I think we have good relations. You have an embassy in Vienna. We are in constant touch. There's an Austrian-Pakistan Friendship Society. So there is goodwill. And we hope that we can do more in the areas. As I said, here you have a new now a new government with a lot of new ideas and a lot of challenges this country has, definitely. So if we can be, helpful, we certainly would like to do whatever we can.
All right. Any message for our viewers at PTV World or for the people of Pakistan?
Well, talking about the new government and about all the challenges that you have, I think it's important that everybody kind of makes his or her contribution in whatever area it is, and make it for not your own benefit or only the benefit of your family, but make it for the benefit of the whole country, to guarantee that it can develop its full potential. Embrace the diversity of this country. I think that's a real positive factor, and treat the women well, because this is an important factor. Without their contribution, there can be no real progress.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Brigitta Balaha, to have given us the opportunity to talk to you, to understand what Austria is all about, and also to decipher the relationship that Austria and Pakistan have. And we wish and we hope that in the coming years and decades, this relationship that exists between our two countries only empowers itself and strengthens. Thank you so very much, Dr. Balaha.
Thank you very much for having me.